Berlin, 28th of April, 1945. The smoke rises vertically in the still morning air, gray pillars against a paler gray sky. In the frozen dust of a shell crater near the Landwehr Canal, a torn bundle of red cloth lies half-buried, discarded by a retreating Wehrmacht supply unit. The fabric is silk, sewn in a Moscow workshop weeks earlier, destined to fly over something, anything, that could be claimed as victory. The distant clatter is rhythmic now. Tank treads on cobblestone, the metallic snap of small arms fire. And beneath it all, the low groan of a city collapsing into itself. 200 kilometers of Soviet advance compress into the final 2 kilometers. Marshal Georgy Zhukov's First Belarusian Front presses from the east and northeast. Marshal Ivan Konev's First Ukrainian Front sweeps from the southeast. Between them, Berlin is a pocket, and at the pocket's symbolic heart sits a single building. The Reichstag, bombed-out husk of the German parliament, abandoned since 1933 but never erased from the Soviet imagination. Stalin's directive is clear. The Reichstag must fall before May Day, before the workers' holiday can be celebrated in Moscow. The building is militarily irrelevant. Hitler's bunker lies a kilometer south, the real command center. But symbols are weapons too, and this one will crown the war. The Third Shock Army, hardened by 3 years of westward fighting, is given the honor. Their objective: cross the Spree, breach the government quarter, storm the Reichstag, plant the victory banner. They have 48 hours. The sound that defines 28th of April is artillery. At 06:30 hours, batteries from the 79th Rifle Corps open a preparation barrage along the Spree River's northern bank. The shells arc over the black water and slam into the diplomatic quarter, embassy facades, ministry buildings, the skeletal remains of cultural institutions. The plan is methodical. Soften strongpoints, suppress the Zoo flak tower's guns, force the defenders' heads down long enough for rifle divisions to cross. The Moltke Bridge is the choke point. 100 meters of exposed stone and steel spanning the river, bracketed by German machine gun nests on the far side and enfiladed by the massive 100 and 128mm anti-aircraft guns atop the Zoo flak tower, 800 meters to the west. Sidebar: the Zoo flak tower. Completed in 1941, this concrete fortress mounted 4 twin 128mm guns on its roof platform, with overlapping fields of fire covering the Tiergarten, the government quarter, and river crossings. Its walls, over 2 meters thick, were nearly impervious to field artillery. Crews included Luftwaffe personnel and Hitler Jugend auxiliaries. The tower would not surrender until the 2nd of May, fighting independently even after the Reichstag fell. Source: Technical Histories of Berlin Flak Towers. Beaver, Berlin, The Downfall, pp. 345-347. Senior Lieutenant Pyotr Pimonov, an engineer with the 756th Rifle Regiment, crouches in the rubble of a burned-out apartment overlooking the Spree. His orders are to lead a sapper detachment across the Moltke Bridge under covering smoke and secure the southern abutment. He has done this before, at the Oder, at the Neisse. But here the water is different. Beneath the bridge, the flooded tunnels of the U-Bahn gurgle and hiss. German engineers have blown several underground lines, deliberately flooding the metro to slow Soviet infantry, using the tunnels as covered approaches. Pimonov can hear it. The rush of displaced water, the clang of debris shifting in subterranean currents. The smoke shells burst at 07 fim. White phosphorus and standard screening rounds blanket the bridge in seconds. Pimonov's detachment sprints forward, boots hammering stone, while above them the Zoo tower's guns swing slowly, radar blind in the chemical fog, firing on pre-sighted coordinates. One round strikes the bridge's eastern rail, and the concussion throws 2 men into the river. They do not surface. By 0740, the southern end of the Moltke Bridge is Soviet-held, and the 79th Rifle Corps begins pouring troops across. Tanks cannot follow immediately. The bridge's integrity is suspect. So the first wave is infantry and heavy machine guns on wheeled mounts. They fan out into the diplomatic quarter, a maze of gutted embassies and administrative buildings, each one a potential fortress. The operational map, if we could freeze it at noon on 28th of April, shows the front line as a ragged bulge. The Spree is crossed in 3 places, but resistance stiffens as Soviet units approach the Königsplatz, the open square directly north of the Reichstag. German units in this sector are a patchwork. Remnants of SS Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler, sailors from the Kriegsmarine's Donitz Brigade, reassigned as infantry after the fleet's destruction, Volkssturm militia stiffened by a handful of NCOs, and scattered Fallschirmjäger paratroopers redeployed from anti-aircraft duties. They fight building to building, collapsing staircases behind them, sniping from upper floors that have no floors below. The Ministry of the Interior is a fortress in all but name. Constructed in the 1930s, its load-bearing walls are reinforced concrete, and its cellars connect via tunnel to neighboring buildings. By the afternoon of 28th of April, it has become the anchor of the inner defensive ring, held by approximately 300 German troops under the command of officers from Kampfgruppe Mohnke. Wilhelm Mohnke, SS Brigade Führer, whose ad hoc battle group controls the government quarters defense, Beaver Berlin, the downfall, PP 362-365, Soviet Third Shock Reports. Starshina, Sergeant, Grigory Bulatov and his sapper squad approach the ministry's western entrance at 1400 hours. The doorway is bricked shut, the windows above sandbagged. Bulatov's orders are to blow the wall, but as he places the charges, a burst of machine gun fire forces him flat. Across the street, in a half-collapsed apartment block, he can see the muzzle flash. Inside the ministry, Oberbootsmann, Petty Officer First Class, Heinrich Falk, a Kriegsmarine machinist reassigned to infantry 3 weeks ago, feeds a belt into an MG-42. He is 22 years old and has never fired at a human being before. His training was for U-boat maintenance. His combat instruction lasted 2 days. The Soviet soldiers in the street below are shapes, not people, and he holds the trigger until the barrel glows. Bulatov's charges detonate. The wall collapses inward and smoke fills the ground floor. Soviet riflemen pour through and the ministry's defenders fall back to the upper stories. By evening, the building is half cleared, but the Germans still hold the roof and the cellar tunnels. Progress is measured in rooms, not blocks. This is the rhythm of 28 to 29 April. Infiltration, explosion, close quarters killing, consolidation. Casualties mount on both sides. The Soviet Third Shock Army logs over 800 wounded in a single day. Unit casualty reports, RGSB archives. German losses are harder to quantify. Many units have stopped reporting altogether, their command structures dissolved. But the pressure is unrelenting. By dawn on 30th of April, Soviet troops have reached the edges of the Königsplatz, and the Reichstag is visible across 200 meters of open ground, churned mud and rubble piles. The building itself is scarred black, its dome long since burned away in a 1933 fire, its western facade pockmarked by years of strategic bombing. It should be a ruin, empty. Instead, it is defended. The Reichstag on 30th April 1945 is both symbol and labyrinth. Its official defenders, perhaps 300 to 500 troops, numbers disputed in post-battle reports, are a mix of SS Nordland Division remnants, sailors, Volkssturm, and scattered Hitler Jugend. Beaver estimates 300. Soviet reports claim up to $1,000, likely including adjacent buildings. They have bricked up the grand entrances, converted the Reichstag's interior into a maze of barricades, and flooded the basement with water from burst pipes. Command structure is murky. Some sources attribute tactical leadership to SS officers from Mohunka's group, others to a senior naval officer whose name is lost. The building's interior is vertical warfare. The ground floor is a shell, open to the sky in places where the roof has collapsed. The upper galleries and committee chambers are accessible via staircases that defenders have deliberately weakened, forcing attackers to climb slowly, exposed. The basement is a trap, dark, flooded ankle-deep, with multiple chambers that can be sealed from inside. The roof, or what remains of it, offers commanding views of the Königsplatz and cover for snipers. Soviet assault plans call for a two-pronged attack. Breach the northern facade with concentrated artillery, then infiltrate through blasted walls while suppressing fire from adjacent buildings pins German reinforcements. The artillery preparation begins at 600 on 30 April. Direct fire guns, including 152mm howitzers, dragged to within 300 meters, hammer the Reichstag's northern wall. Stone and brick explode inward. Dust clouds obscure the building entirely. At 1400 hours, the first assault waves go in. Soldiers from the 150th Rifle Division, reinforced by elements of the 171st and 207th Rifle Divisions, sprint across the Königsplatz. German machine guns on the Reichstag's roof and in adjacent buildings open up, and the plaza becomes a killing ground. Men fall, scramble for cover behind rubble, advance in short rushes. Some units reach the building's base and begin to work through breaches. Others are pinned for hours. Lieutenant Stepan Neustroyev leads a company of the 756th Rifle Regiment into the Reichstag's ground floor, through a blasted window on the northwest corner. The room beyond is dark, lit only by shafts of dusty light from overhead gaps. Furniture is piled as barricades. The air smells of cordite and mold. They clear the room, move to the next, find German soldiers falling back up a staircase. Grenades are exchanged, Soviet RGD-33s and German stick grenades, the blasts deafening in enclosed spaces. Neustroyev's men reach the second floor by late afternoon, but cannot go higher. The stairs are collapsed, and German fire from above is too accurate. They dig in, fortify captured rooms, wait for reinforcements. By nightfall, Soviet forces hold perhaps a third of the ground floor and scattered positions on the second, but the building is far from secured. The urgency is political. Moscow wants the Reichstag by May Day, by May, the workers' holiday. The symbolism is essential. The red flag must fly over Hitler's capital before the war's official conclusion. Commanders at every level understand this. Victory banners, the red silk flag sewn specifically for this purpose, are distributed to assault units. There are dozens of them, each marked with unit insignia, each intended to be the first flag over the Reichstag. Fighting continues through the night of 30th April and into 1st May. Room by room, the Soviets expand their foothold. German defenders, running low on ammunition and receiving no reinforcements. Mohnke's command has effectively disintegrated. Hitler's suicide on 30th April has shattered what remained of central coordination. Begin to withdraw to the upper floors and roof. The basement is abandoned, flooded, untenable, but the roof remains contested. Around midnight on 30th April or 1st May, soldiers from the 756th Rifle Regiment's reconnaissance platoon, accounts named Mikhail Yegorov and Meliton Kantaraya, among others, reach the Reichstag's roof and plant a red flag on a shell-damaged section of the remaining dome structure. The exact timing is disputed. Some sources claim 2,250 hours on 30th April, others the early hours of in May. Soviet propaganda later formalized the time as 2140 to meet the May Day deadline symbolically. German fire is sporadic. Many defenders are retreating toward the Chancellery or attempting to break out westward. By midday on 1st May, the Reichstag is functionally Soviet-held, though pockets of resistance persist in adjacent buildings until 2nd May. The photograph is indelible. A Soviet soldier leans from the Reichstag's roof, planting the victory banner against a sky of smoke and cloud, while fires burn across the Berlin skyline. The image was published in Ogoniok magazine on 13th May 1945 and became the war's defining visual, reproduced in countless histories, memorials, and textbooks. The reality is more complex. The photographer, Yevgeny Kaldey, a Ukrainian Jewish photojournalist embedded with the Red Army, reached Berlin on 2nd May after the heaviest fighting at the Reichstag had ended. He had prepared for this moment. Before leaving Moscow, he acquired red fabric and commissioned a seamstress to sew 3 large victory banners, anticipating the symbolic need. On 2nd May, Kaldey climbed the Reichstag's ruins with a small group of Soviet soldiers and staged several versions of the flag raising. The soldiers posed. Kaldey adjusted angles, tested light. The iconic version, with the soldier, likely Abdulkakim Ismailov, though this too is contested, leaning dramatically, flag unfurled, was one of several exposures. In darkroom work later, Kaldey enhanced the smoke for visual drama and famously removed a wristwatch from one soldier's arm, or adjusted the image to obscure looted watches on multiple soldiers. To avoid implications of looting, Kaldey's own later interviews. Photo analysis by historians, including David King. This does not diminish the real flag raisings of 30th April and 1st May, when soldiers fought under fire to plant banners. Those moments were acts of combat, not photography. But the image the world remembers, the image that sealed the Reichstag's place in collective memory, is a constructed artifact, a piece of propaganda art that happens to be brilliant. The dual narratives coexist. Soldiers fought for the building, and the building's capture was documented with deliberate artistry. Both are true. War and symbol converge. The Reichstag fell officially on 2nd May 1945. General Helmuth Weidling, Berlin's commandant, surrendered the city's remaining forces that afternoon. Pockets of German resistance continued for hours. Some SS units fought into the evening. Some groups attempted breakouts westward toward American lines. But organized defense ended. Soviet troops raised additional victory banners across the city, over the Brandenburg Gate, the Chancellery, ministries, and parks. The war in Europe would continue formally for 5 more days, until the unconditional surrender at Reims and the Berlin signing on 8th May. But Berlin's fall broke the back of the Reich. Casualties for the Reichstag assault itself are difficult to isolate. The Third Shock Army lost over 2,000 killed and perhaps 10,000 wounded in the Berlin operation's final week unit. Reports compiled in post-war Soviet military histories. The Reichstag fighting accounted for a significant but undocumented fraction. German losses in the government quarter are unknown. Many defenders who survived were taken prisoner. Many others died in the rubble and were never counted. The victory banner, not Kaldey's photographed version, but an official banner designated post-war, became a relic. The red silk flag marked 150th Rifle Division was enshrined as the standard carried in Soviet and later Russian Victory Day parades, a tangible link to the battle's symbolic peak. Museums in Moscow and Berlin display variants and replicas. Veterans' accounts argue over which unit, which soldier, Which moment deserves primacy? The contested myths are many. Did Yegorov or Cantoria plant the first flag? Or was it another soldier whose name was politically inconvenient? Why does the official timeline claim 2100 hours on 30th of April when evidence suggests later timings? How many defenders actually held the Reichstag, and were they elite troops or exhausted stragglers? These questions are not academic. Each answer carries ideological weight. Today, the Reichstag stands restored, the seat of the German Bundestag. Its facade is clean, its dome a modern glass structure, its interior bright with democracy's bureaucratic hum. But scars remain. Bullet marks on exterior stones, preserved deliberately, plaques in Russian and German marking the building's history, and in archives, the fading records of men who fought over a ruin because symbols matter, even when the war is already won. The Reichstag assault is history written by victors, revised by scholars, and mythologized by memory. Where do the myths end and the facts begin? When does propaganda become historical record? This narrative has drawn on Soviet military archives, Third Shock Army reports, RGASP collections, Antony Beever's exhaustive Berlin, The Downfall, Yevgeny Kalday's photographic records and interviews, technical analyses of Berlin's flak towers, and participant memoirs, Soviet and German. Where sources conflict on casualty figures, timings, individual identities, I have noted the discrepancies. Some anecdotes are reconstructed from multiple fragmentary accounts. These are marked as such.